The Trojans recruiting train has left the station, and the Coliseum now is selling out in advance.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you're downloading your podcast, the show is always going to be free, and you know the show always appreciates your support. Today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers, if you bet $5, you're going to get a 3-week free trial of the NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com, and you can get started today. My everyday listeners, viewers, they woke up yesterday, listened to Locked On USC, and they knew they were getting a 5-star wide receiver named Jerome Miles committing to USC today. Well, today, Jerome made it official. He's committed to the Trojans. 6'3", 215 pounds. He's from West Jordan, Utah. Corner Canyon High School power program. He decided he was going to pick the Trojans over Texas A&M, as well as the hometown school, Utah. USC is he's a top 5 receiver in the country. He might be the best wide receiver in the country. And he holds the Utah state records in the 100-meter and 200-meter dash. Okay, I don't care what state you're from, California, Utah, Vermont, New Hampshire, that's fast, period, end of story. On3's director of scouting, his name is Charles Powers. This is how he describes Jerome Miles. He is arguably the most physically gifted pass catcher in the 2025 recruiting cycle. 6'3", 215 pounds with a state record of 10.36 in the 100-meter dash. He has an elite combination of size and speed. I think most important, he's able to harness that speed on Friday nights. So it's not just fast. He knows how to make it football fast. Big difference. He continued, Miles is able to threaten defenses in multiple ways. He can take the top off of defense. He's a deep ball threat. And when you watch his senior film, he's also extremely physical. A player that's difficult to tackle, strong on contact, and an outstanding blocker as well. When you look at what Jerome Miles brings to USC, he has the potential to be the best outside receiver talent in Los Angeles since Drake London, who ended up being a top 10 pick. Drake London just had, the game-winning touchdown against Philadelphia the other night. It's a pretty good comparison. Although Drake is a little bit taller, I think a little bit longer. Miles, he's kind of like that whole, like I said, that whole package. And that's where they're making that comparison with Drake London. So how did this happen? How did USC snatch the state of Utah's best player? Well, all it took was some communication, building that relationship, and then wide receiver coach, assistant head coach, Dennis Simmons, USC, they closed the deal. This happened, 2 weekends ago when Jerome Miles took his visit to USC? Now, how did I know the deal was closed then? I mean, I've been hinting about this for a couple of weeks now. Well, after he decommitted from Ole Miss earlier this summer, Jerome took a couple more visits, and all of a sudden, he had a commitment date set for October 30th. And everyone assumed, all right, it's Utah. He checked out Texas A&M. He checked out Utah. After that Utah visit, commitment date, reading the tea leaves, all signs pointed to the Utes getting a really, really good wide receiver. Well, that was before he got a chance to come out to LA. And that was before he got a chance to see the new and improved USC play football. As I kept telling everyone, when Miles was done with that visit over that weekend, he got to see USC shut out Utah State 48-0. All of a sudden, he immediately set a new commitment date, September 18th. Here we are. At that very moment, once he set up that new commitment date, moving it up essentially a month. Utah fans threw up their hands, they waved the white towel. That was it. It was over. That's how I knew. You don't set a new commitment date immediately after a visit if you don't have intent, if your plans aren't to commit to that team. It would just look really weird. It would look really weird to say, you know what? Yeah, I came out to USC. I was really excited, had a great time, but let's just throw USC out the door, become Utah's guy. It's not how it works. So I guess so much for that Utah winning streak over USC. You get to live with that, Utah fan. Enjoy it. USC is going to look to the future with the state of Utah's best player. On the recruiting front, this is massive. On a national scale, huge, massive, big time. Jerome, again, he's one of those unicorn type of wide receivers. Great route runner. Can take the top of it off of the defense. Physical. This is the type of recruit that flocks to USC when they're winning football games and when they're looking impressive while they're doing it. All of a sudden, USC is that sexy team again. It literally makes the best of the best want to play for the Trojans. Jerome Miles, his impact on the recruiting class, well, I didn't think they were going to get up to the number 10 recruiting class. I mentioned that on yesterday's episode. But I did think they would move up from number 15 and be close to the top 10. But you know what? I'll take it. All of a sudden, USC has a top 10 recruiting class in the country. And we're still in September, middle of September. When Jerome was asked why USC, this is what he told On3. Definitely the staff made it a pretty easy pick. They have all the experience with NFL players and they know how to develop them. Also, the life outside of football is something different there. You can be successful in anything you choose. Culture. And they do produce a lot of good receivers, by the way. I have a strong relationship with their receivers coach. Close the quote. That kind of summarizes everything. USC offers him what he needs. A great networking for life after football, great development program for football, and he feels that vibe, that relationship with the coaching staff. That's all recruits want. That's all they need. NIL is going to help. Trust me, NIL is going to help them very well. But what if this commitment from Miles all of a sudden kind of lights that match, sparks that fire, helps the Trojans, I don't know, just build that bonfire where high school recruits are just like, oh, what's going on over there? What's that big shiny thing going on? I mentioned the name Floyd Boucard on yesterday's episode of Locked On USC, the defensive tackle who decommitted from Oklahoma. I'm not sure if he's the next guy to commit, but there's a strong feeling that he's back in the fold. Remember, just to remind everybody, he allegedly was one of those silent emojis that was sent out back in June, July, when he took his visit to USC. Everyone will agree. All right, everyone will agree. Lincoln Riley, USC, they know how to attract quarterbacks, wide receivers. That's great. But what if more big-time defensive players, linemen, offensive linemen, both sides of the ball? What if all of a sudden we see more 5-star prospects starting to join the class, or high 4 stars? Subjective. So all of a sudden you got Lynn's defense that, it's making USC cooler than the other side of the pillow. You start combining these things. USC's winning. They're doing it impressive. They're beating big-time programs. They're doing it on the road, hopefully in Michigan this weekend. What kind of impact does that have? Not just on USC's recruiting, but the rest of the country. I'm going to explore that possibility in the next segment. And then in the third segment, let's talk about USC on offense against Michigan. And when I say US against Michigan, I'm talking about their really good defense, the one that you would be crazy to call them not good, according to Coach Riley. And I'm also going to give you my final score prediction in the third segment. But make no mistake about it. USC's recruiting train, it's left the station, and it's picking up passengers, but there's not a lot of room left. So recruits, you better check your ticket. You better punch that ticket before somebody else takes it, because the Coliseum, it's also sold out. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about this. You've heard me talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we've got something a little bit different for you now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers, you can bet $5 and you can get 3 weeks of free NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with that YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can even cancel anytime you want. Just visit fanduel.com/locked on, and you can download America's #1 sports book. Hey, USC fans, have you heard about ROY? You know who that is? What it is? It stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before, making contributions directly to your favorite athlete. By supporting players directly, you can shape the roster. You can help retain your roster's talent. You can keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. And as you know, NIL has changed the way the game is played for athletes. Changed the way the game is played completely. When you join ROY, you'll get exclusive content access. Here's a couple of things you're going to get. When fans contribute to a successful campaign, they're going to receive exclusive access to content only available to the fans who supported that athlete. Also, this is kind of cool. There's no risk with your contributions. Those contributions are securely held, and they are only distributed to the athlete if that athlete makes the right decision, staying with the team. In other words, when that transfer portal closes and they're still on your team, then the money is turned over to them. If not, the money is returned right back to you. So engage athletes on their NIL journey. Download ROY. Okay, you can do it for iOS or Android, and when you do that, you're going to be entered automatically for $5,000 in a sweepstakes. All you got to do is use the code Locked On. So again, download ROY. You can do it for your iOS phone. You can do it for your Android phone. Enter the referral code Locked On, and you're going to be automatically entered for a $5,000 cash sweepstakes. Visit joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Get the ROY app for iOS or Android and start making an impact on your favorite team. Get off the sidelines. Support the players. Change the game with ROY. I've seen this movie before. I'm having a little bit of deja vu. USC is playing great football right now. They're playing in big-time games, and they're winning. It started back in that bowl game against Louisville. It carried over into game 1 against LSU in Las Vegas. USC came home. They pitched a shutout. Yeah, USC's defense pitched a shutout. USC beat Utah State 48-0. As a result of this, well, the Coliseum is sold out. Not all the games. Two of USC's next 4 home games are sold out. As you know, USC plays Michigan this weekend. Okay. Then they come home. They take on the Wisconsin Badgers. That game is sold out. They play the Nebraska Cornhuskers in November. I think that's the first weekend of November. Guess what? That game is sold out. I'm willing to bet that when USC leaves Ann Arbor 3-0, that's me knocking on wood, the Penn State game at the Coliseum, that will be the next game sold out. Guarantee it. So the question is going to be, are you going to have a ticket for the game? Right? How much higher did USC's recruiting class jump? Well, I already told you they went from number 15 to number 10 with the addition of Jerome Miles. Because USC's recruiting well, because they're winning and they're looking good doing it, games are selling out the Coliseum. But it's also going to start having an impact on their recruiting class. Everything works hand in hand. So far, September has been really good to USC. You had elite linebacker Ty Jackson. He announced his commitment to USC, what was that, September 8th? And then you had, I know he's a class of 2026, but big-time Utah defensive lineman Biliami Mwala. He committed just a couple days later, September 10th. Not bad, right? And then you have the addition of Jerome Miles here on September 18th. All of a sudden, USC went from the number 15th ranked class all the way up to number 10. Let me go over the top 10 for you real quick. Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Auburn, Texas, Tennessee. Oh, here comes the big conference. Oregon, A&M at number 9, USC, big conference, number 10. That's it. So you got Ohio State, Oregon, USC, the other 7, the SEC. You can draw whatever type of inferences from that as you want. Who's paying who's got the best NIL programs. But it is a little bit of a strange mix. Like you see Auburn in there. All right. A&M, USC. Again, all these programs have strong NIL, but USC has been the team on the outside looking in recently. Not right now. Right now, they're top 10. And again, they leave Michigan. Who knows how high they jump? With the addition of Miles, they leapfrogged Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Miami, and Clemson. As I've stated before, Michigan is USC's opponent on Saturday. They right now hold the number 15th ranked recruiting class nationally. And these are according to On3. So on that note, Michigan. Josh Henson, USC's offensive line coach, excuse me, he has a chance to impress a couple of offensive linemen this weekend who are already currently committed. We'd like to see them reconsider those commitments and maybe put themselves on flip watch. If USC's offensive line takes their next step against Michigan's really good defensive line, here's 2 guys who could potentially end up on the flip watch. Douglas Utu, who is currently committed to Tennessee, Bishop Gorman product. You've got Aaron Dunn, offensive tackle from the state of Utah, committed to Utah. Those are 2 guys to keep an eye on. And if Dunn ends up showing up at the Coliseum in these next few weeks, which I believe he's trying to schedule, if I'm a Utah fan, I'm going to be even more pissed off at USC. Because not only will they have taken Jerome Miles, if he ends up going to the Coliseum and watches USC beat Wisconsin or Penn State, Nebraska, that's going to be a good sign. Because all of a sudden now USC's proven, hey, they can play physical, smash-mouth football, which is the biggest kind of known for. That's what Utah's known for. And that's maybe what Aaron Dunn is looking for, that type of development at the playing offensive line for USC. Same thing with Douglas Utu, Bishop Gorman. Coach Dog, Aaron Ama, I've told you before, he's made Utah his personal mission statement in life. So we know he's going to stay after Aaron Dunn. We know he had a hand in Jerome Miles. He's not done yet. I didn't mean to do that, but yeah. He wants everybody from the state of Utah. I mentioned Utu. He doesn't have a strong relationship with USC. It's building. He's been up to USC a couple times. But again, Coach Henson, he's just going to continue to chip away, continue to prove to the guy, hey, you know what? You don't have to go out to Tennessee. You can stay closer to home, play some big-time programs in the big conference. It's not all about the SEC. This is what he said. I'm still pretty good with them, USC, and I'm keeping my options open, even though I'm still committed to Tennessee. So we'll see what happens with him. We'll see what happens. So Utu, he was the first. He's taken official visits so far to Washington, Michigan, Alabama, Nebraska, and Tennessee. Then he committed. He hasn't taken an official visit to USC yet. That's still out there. That option is still on the table. And since we're talking about guys who maybe USC should go after to flip, why not? Let's start getting in the ears of some of those Florida Gators, those guys who are committed to the Florida program. Sorry, dumpster fire right now. Billy Napier is literally living on borrowed time. I'm telling you, if they lose their next game, they're going to use he'll probably be relieved of his duties. They'll use the bye week, give the new interim coach a couple of weeks to kind of put his footprint on things to get everybody remotivated. So in the meantime, I'm going after, I'm saying, hey, Joseph Mbachu, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Mbatchou. Coach Henney, he's been all over the guy, right? He's been on his radar for a while. He's another guy from the state of Georgia. He's supposed to be in LA next month, so we'll see what happens. In fact, next month, he's supposed to be attending the USC Penn State game. He also has one of his teammates who's a member of the 2026 class, linebacker, who is high on USC. He'll be out there that weekend as well. His name is Anthony Davis. So we'll see what happens. Joseph was asked about USC, and he told On3, where USC is, it is a land of opportunity. It is far away, but playing out there could give me a lot of opportunities after football. I want to go out there and see how the people are, and if it feels right, then it could be a cool place to be. I want to learn more about USC, close quote. That's encouraging. He'll see what he needs to see on the football field watching the games on TV, or especially when he's out there for that Penn State game. But when USC turns on this is what USC can do for you after football, it's a hard offer to turn down. It really, really is. So we'll see what happens. Stay tuned for that. Right now, the Trojans have a chance to win games against some quality opponents. Recruits are going to be watching September, October, early November. Look, I know the vibe USC has when they're recruiting. When they're recruiting well, when they're winning and they're recruiting well, there's just a certain vibe. Like I said, I've seen this movie before. I'm getting that nostalgic feeling. So this game against Michigan is going to, if USC does what they're supposed to do, win the game, that recruiting train is just going to continue to pick up more momentum. So let me just kind of throw this out there. What happens if USC is 6-0 after that Penn State game, recruiting-wise? Say this, the fans better use GameTime to get their tickets, because recruits, you have to punch your ticket. The Coliseum, it's selling out. Now's the time to get on board. Michigan, USC, 3-0 leaving Michigan. Yeah, GameTime might be your only way to get tickets. Speaking of GameTime, when was the last time you went to a concert, comedy show, any live event? When was the last time you've been to a USC game? GameTime has this really cool new feature called GameTime Picks, and it makes getting tickets for your favorite live event even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff. It's not going to show you all the other stuff. It's only going to show you these really great, incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching. That's pretty cool. And my favorite feature is see your seat before you check out. Literally, it'll kind of give you a bird's eye view. If you're sitting here, this is what you're going to see. It's a really cool feature. So what are you worried about? With GameTime, they have a guarantee. You're always going to get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I should probably get used to hearing this again. Quote, the Trojans are going to curb stomp fill in the blank this week. Whoever was on USC's schedule that week, they were going to kill them. I'm starting to hear that more and more. More analysts on TV, media podcasters, writers, they're all saying that USC is going to beat Michigan, and they're probably going to do it with relative ease. I speak that language. It's all coming back to me. I remember hearing that. I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. USC is going to march into Arkansas. They're going to win. They're going to go into Columbus. They're going to win. They're going to go into Lincoln, Nebraska. They're going to win. Seen it happen. And they did it with ease. But right now, today, it kind of feels a little weird. It feels weird because I haven't spoken that language for, 15 years? Again, it's like riding a bike. It all comes back to you. You don't forget how when you've been there before. All I need to do to where I start speaking this language fluently again, I just want to watch USC's offensive line do its thing against Michigan's really, really good defensive line. Let me restate that. They're really, really, really good defensive line. 3 times for emphasis. If the Trojans' offensive line keeps Miller Moss's uniform clean, he's going to pick that Wolverine defense apart. They're secondary. That means guys like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart, they're not getting to Miller. And yes, USC needs to establish the run game to make that happen. But if Michigan is selling out against the run, I'm telling you, Miller is going to tear them a new one. He is going to use Mekhi Lemon, Zachariah Branch, Lake McRee, Deuce Robinson, Jacoby Lane, Woody Marks catching the ball. That's just too many weapons for Michigan to trying to defend. And they're not really good pass defense right now. They got Will Johnson back there, but he can't cover everybody. Do you want to be the nickelback covering Zachariah Branch? I don't. Talk about a tough assignment. As I stated on yesterday's episode of Locked on USC, which will have a bigger impact on this game Saturday? Will it be USC's improved defense or Michigan's offense with a running quarterback who's going to throw it when only absolutely necessary? I think it's going to throw it more than 6 times, which is, by the way, how many career attempts he has so far in his 3 years in college. 6 or 7 passes. 3 of them have gone for touchdowns, but those are all literally, and I'm not kidding, those were extended handoff passes right by the goal line. And he has not shown anybody he's a threat to throw the ball downfield. If Michigan cannot run the ball like they did against Penn State last year, against USC, and if Michigan's really good tight end, Colston Loveland, is limited, they're not going to have any passing game. Colston Loveland is their passing game. They don't have another wide receiver that's even close to what he produces. And Michigan has another problem. And this will probably sound really familiar to USC fans. The right side of Michigan's offensive line is a question mark. Now you understand USC fans don't know that. However, Mason Murphy, Alani Noah, so far they've acquitted themselves really well in those first 2 games. Number 1, no penalties. That's great. It's outstanding. So if Michigan's offensive line is going to have a problem, Orgy's going to be back there protecting the ball, trying to play running back because he's not going to have time to throw. Anthony Lucas is about to bust out. And don't think for a second they're not looking to get him over on that right side and exploiting it. Same thing with Eric Gentry. In fact, the guy who can end up being Michigan's kryptonite, who can just blow everything up, is Eric Gentry. He's that guy at linebacker who can run sideline to sideline like a deer. 6'5", 6'6", whatever he is. 7-foot wingspan. Yeah. he's the type of guy who can force everything back in between the tackles. Advantage USC defense. If there's one player who has probably benefited the most from this new coaching staff, especially on the defensive side of the ball, it's Eric. Dude is having so much fun right now. So much fun. All right, here it is. My final score prediction, USC 34, Michigan 17. I think it's going to start off slow. You're going to have both teams kind of pawing each other, feeling each other out, low scoring. And then second quarter, I think, is when USC kind of turns on the offense, turns it up a little bit, and they're going to have just enough on defense. Not just enough. They'll have plenty of enough on defense to eventually just wear out Michigan. And if they can't get that passing game going, it won't matter. Antonlynn is just too good of a defensive coordinator to all of a sudden have a clunker. Could happen. I don't feel it. So everything's working right now for USC. Recruiting. The fans are buying their tickets in advance now. So Coliseum selling out. You've got USC versus Michigan. Your first game as a big conference member in the big house against the reigning national champions. What better way to open up your conference schedule? And what a better way to kind of send a message to the rest of the country. Recruits, you want to play for USC? And if you have an offer, don't wait around because the train is leaving. It's left the station and it's not slowing down. All right, I'll be back with another episode of Locked On USC tomorrow. I will be in the state of Michigan. I will have my Friday rant, and I'll have everything leading up to this next game. Until then, everyone, you know what to do.